Welcome back to the You Are Immeasurable podcast, season 3. This season is going to be dedicated to those of us that are on our journey of healing and transformation. The focus of this season is going to be to identify and recognize healthy and unhealthy relationship dynamics. We're going to talk a lot about the spiritual tools that we'll need to become acquainted with to help us to stand, to operate in, and to flourish as our authentic self. Things like shadow work, energy healing, which will help us to shred or shed the guilt, the shame that we've been carrying, and also to do some much needed subconscious reprogramming. Now, as always, the episodes are going to air weekly, and the purpose of them is to support you as you embrace and become acquainted with your enlightened and untethered higher self. So I want you to grab your water, your juice, your wine, or your tea or your coffee, and let's toast to each other and our growth, our elevation, and abundance. Welcome back to the You Are Immeasurable podcast. I wanted to expand a little bit on something I said in last week's episode. We were talking about cord cutting, and I mentioned that going through this process or having this experience helps to take your shadow work to the next level. And so this week, I wanted to expound on that and give you a little bit of a better idea of really what I mean when I say that. If you've been listening to me for a while, you already know that I'm a huge proponent on shadow work. And in doing the cord cutting sessions that I've been doing the last few weeks, I get the question often, how often can I do this, or how much can I do this? Can I make a mistake in choosing or deciding what it is I'm going to sever the connection with? And another one that I really like to explore and like to answer is, what happens when once I cut a cord, I realize that there are still other things that I need to confront or deal with. And in a nutshell, here's the thing. We have to remember that as we're on this transformational journey, and as we accept things, as we deal with things, there's usually always going to be something underneath that ridding ourselves of that one thing will uncover. Say, for example, in the early parts of my transformation journey, I dealt with being a people pleaser because I'm like, okay, I need to get out of this because it's not the real me, right? It was a persona that I had adopted because I had dealt with many years of people being, I'll say, offended or being threatened by my actual personality. So I began to water myself down. I began to seek to make people be more comfortable in my energy. And at the time when I started doing that, I didn't understand fully what I was doing. I had the thought, or it was one of those things, again, that stemmed from my childhood, that this will make people like me. This will make people want to be around me. And we find that a lot of people that have that life of the party personality have that little thing hiding underneath that. And so as I started working on figuring out why and when and how, I developed this people pleaser persona when I made up my mind, okay, you know what? I'm no longer doing this, and I got rid of it, or rather, I visualized speaking with that version of me, giving that version of me what she needed in order to transmute that negative impact it had on my life, the negative feelings that came with being told that you're too aggressive, you're too direct, you're too blunt, you have no filter, all of those things. As I sat with myself, that version of me that was stuck in that fear of not being liked, not having friends, not having people that wanted to be around me, as I dealt with that and helped myself to see that if someone can accept us, and this is me talking to my shadow, right? If someone can accept us for who we are, we don't need them in our life, in our energy, in our circle anyway, because they're not there for the right reason. If they want us to dim or water down who we are because they're uncomfortable with themselves, that's not our problem. Exactly who we were created to be, exactly who we are effortlessly, should be celebrated not only by us, but by those that we hold dear to us, those that we allow in our orbit and within our circle, and that we spend time with, and all of those fun and groovy things. They will not, they will not want us to be something else. They will not want us to be their version of who we ought to be or who they would rather us be. And in really, really having that conversation with myself, I was able to see that, yeah, that is absolutely true. That I'm not doing anybody any favors by being this fake version of me. And so I was able to reintegrate that part of myself and dissolving that shadow because it was no longer needed. Well, then when I did that, it started bringing up other things, right? Because that was the lid, if you will, that was keep holding all of the other things, say in that jar, keeping it all underneath. So once I popped that lid, all of those other things began to rise to the surface, and now they want to get out of the jar, right? So that's why it's perfectly normal. And I want everyone to understand it doesn't mean that you have all of these things wrong with you. That is not the right mindset to have when it comes to working through these things that have become a part of us and that we've carried for who knows how long, right? Because it's different depending on who we are, depending on our age, our experiences, all of that. The time frame can be different, but how it works is pretty much universal. It's pretty much the same. So when I got rid and severed that connection to having to make everybody around me happy, regardless of what it was doing to me, when I got rid of that, then things started coming up. Things started coming up. One of the things was recognizing that I had a very profound mother wound. Another thing that came up was that I had a very huge fear of who I had always been since I was a child, as far as my intuition and my gifts that I was born with. Because for so long, I had dealt with people that I would try to explain the things that I would see, and the response wasn't always positive, or the response was, yeah, you've got too much of a vivid imagination, or something's wrong with you, or all those things that make us feel even more different and weird and not the same, right? So again, I bring all of that up as I do often, and share my experiences with you to let you know that you're not alone in these things, and you're not an island. You're not the only one that has gone through that or experienced that, because for a lot of us that are gifted people, those of us that have these phenomenal talents and these phenomenal abilities, and sometimes we don't have people around us that can teach us or explain to us or help us to understand what really is going on. It causes issues for us, because it often leads us into places of hiding, denying, and trying to find a facade or a persona or a mask to put on, that we don't feel like we're not the same, or that we're not as different as we are. Because, hey, guess what? Being different is great. You've probably heard me say it a million times. Embrace the weird. And that just means, hey, we're not all meant to be exactly the same. That's the reason that we're so different. I say all the time that regardless of what you may call it, you may say God or the universe or the divine or spirit or source. That energy loves variety. That's why we're all so different. We look different. We talk different. We walk different. We like different things. We like different foods, different scents, different, all of this. That energy loves variety. And unfortunately, for a lot of us, it's the people around us that make us feel like our uniqueness is a curse and not a blessing, that our difference is something to be ashamed of and not something to be celebrated. But my hope, my wish, my prayer for you is that along this journey, you will realize for yourself that your uniqueness, your quirks, those things that make you your own special, perfectly imperfect self should absolutely be celebrated. And if others choose not to, you should choose to celebrate them, embrace them, acknowledge them, learn to work with it, and those things that maybe you've hidden from others and from yourself for a really long time. So as always, I really hope that this was helpful. I hope that this gives you something to think about, and that it also helps you to begin to embrace all the parts of you, all the beauty that is you, and all the things that make you unique and special. And if you want to have someone beside you, walking with you, to share that experience of uncovering those things, unmasking yourself, and embracing all that you are, I'm absolutely here for you. I'm here for it. And I would love to be a part of your journey. So reach out, leave me a comment, or send me a message on social media. I would absolutely love to be a partner with you along your healing journey. Until next time, cheers to your transformation. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the You Are Immeasurable podcast. Please remember to subscribe so that you can be notified whenever new episodes are dropped. Also, I'd love to have your feedback and your comments as well as your 5-star rating. Additionally, if you'd like to connect with me, the show notes list all of my social media handles so that you can do so. So until next time, thank you so much and cheers to your transformation.